want to give you back hope for a better future. I want to give you back that power, the power of owning and defining your dreams. Hello and welcome to another episode of Challenge Your Mindset. I'm your host, Noura, and if you heard last week's episode, I am focusing the next few episodes on graduates because if you are in the States, it is graduation season. And so we're focusing on graduates. And so when I graduated, the world was full of hope. I thought every door would be open to me. And as reality began to set in, it seemed that I had unrealistic dreams. Think about that for a second. Unrealistic dreams. Unrealistic dreams. Dreams. When were dreams ever realistic? Who dictates your dreams? Dreams where you're riding a dinosaur or flying across the sky or teleporting from one place to another. As far as I'm aware, dreams are not supposed to be realistic. I know that we've all been told this one time or another. Be realistic. Your dreams are unrealistic. You're thinking too big. And it puts you down. You start feeling bad. You feel bad that you even thought of those dreams. You feel bad that your brain even imagined a life where you could travel or own a house or a car or a horse or a pool or whatever it may be. And then you start thinking small and you brush all those dreams under the rug and you start thinking in the confines of other people's minds. You're no longer in your amazing brain, but in the minds of others, defining yourself and what you can be through other people. That doesn't sound great. It sounds like you've gotten trapped, and that's exactly how it feels. I want to hand you back the key to that lock. I want you to unlock the cage that you've put yourself in, and I want to do it by telling you the story of IKEA. Before I hop into it though, this episode is not sponsored by IKEA, although if anybody from IKEA is listening and would like to sponsor, feel free to reach out to me. I absolutely love IKEA. And so let's get started with the story. So the founder of IKEA, his name was Ingvar Kamprad, and he struggled with school because of his dyslexia. He finished high school but never went to college. He grew up on a farm called Elmitrid near the village of Agunnaryd in Sweden. The place he lived was known for its poverty. The people would farm, but farming wasn't enough because the ground itself was rocky, and so his parents had to work other jobs. His mom owned a guest house, and his dad owned a store. He knew that life was tough, and so he decided to work from a young age. Now, I don't know if this was a decision, if it was really his choice, or if because life was tough, he had to work. But when he was 5 years old, he started selling matches and pencils to his classmates for a profit. And as he grew older, he began dabbling and selling other things like fish. When he was 17, his father gave him some money as a reward for doing well in school. By putting that money together with some of the money that he had saved over the years, he used the money to pay the registration fee of the business firm that we now know as IKEA, and that is how IKEA was born. The I and the K are from his initials, Ingvar Kamprad. The E is from Elmtrid, the farm, and the A is for Agunnaryd. And that is how you get IKEA, I-K-E-A. Now, I can stop here and say, and this is what happened and how IKEA was made, and it was fantastic, and it was as fantastic as we knew. But we all know that every success story has hiccups, and so let's get into it. Ingvar wanted to sell things to people for cheap prices. He wanted to get a product and get it to the consumer for a cheap price. At the time, in the early 1940s, there was a high demand for pens. And so Ingvar took his first and last loan ever to import pens. And so to attract customers, he would offer everyone that came to his store a free cup of coffee and a bun. And so they would eat and drink and buy pens. This was a great idea because people would come and they would eat and shop. But he soon realized that the pens didn't really have a future as a business, so he chose to step away from his business idea. He took the profits that he had made and he decided to invest it somewhere else. Now, you may be listening to this and thinking, well, Is this why there's food in every IKEA store? And the answer is yes. The idea stemmed from this experience, from him noticing that it would attract customers to come and eat, but also shop. Now, Ingvar stepped away from pens, and one day he was looking through an agriculture magazine, and he saw an ad from a furniture seller who was his main competitor. So he decided to try to embark on this business venture and hop into the furniture business. Before he started selling furniture, he was looking for places that sell the cheapest furniture to buy. And furniture was expensive, so he began by selling replicas of his uncle's kitchen table, and then he expanded from there. And each item that he sold was given a special name because of his dyslexia. His dyslexia didn't allow him to remember the numeric names of items. So in case you were wondering why IKEA furniture has names, this is why. So he would give booklets to his customers when they would walk in, and eventually they became what is now known as the IKEA catalog. He told his customers that he would expand his selection if they were interested, and they were interested. They wanted more of this furniture that was sold at cheaper prices, and so he did just that. But just like any up-and-coming story, there is always a hiccup. In 1955, Ingvar bought a small old factory in Sweden and began producing his own furniture, which decreased the costs, and he could sell the furniture for much cheaper than his competitors. His competitors decided to boycott him and IKEA. They protested his low prices and asked that he increase them. The Swedish Federation of Wood and Furniture Industry persuaded loggers, the people who would sell wood to him, to stop selling wood to Ingvar. Ingvar was still determined to sell furniture cheap and still make a profit, so he turned to importing furniture components from Polish suppliers. He didn't let his competitors stop him just because they decided to boycott him. He was like, let me think outside of the box. And he did. So in 1953, he had his first showroom. He got boycotted in 1955. And in 1958, he opened the first 72,000 square foot store, a massive store, and people attempted to shut him down, but it didn't work. If anything, he continued to make innovations. He wanted to decrease the cost of delivery. So now not only did he decrease the cost of furniture, he wanted to look for another way to make it cheaper for the consumer. They used to do deliveries using milk trucks, and that was an added cost. It wasn't really that cheap. Right? So in the early 1960s, when he went to visit the US, he noticed when he came to America that the people would buy items and carry it out of the store themselves. Now, during this time in Sweden, there was a car boom. People were starting to buy cars. And so Ingvar made a huge parking lot in anticipation of this. And he noticed that people were willing to travel far to do their shopping. So he got this idea of having them actually carry their items out of the store. But they can't just carry a couch or a table outside of the store. So while he was in the US, he also got this idea of doing flat packaging. So when you go to IKEA and you see that the packages are flat, this is exactly why. So people could carry that package outside. It would make it easier for them to carry it, put it in their car, and travel wherever they needed to travel. And the items were pre-made and it was ready to assemble, and it came with little tools inside. So when you grab an item from the shelf and you put it in your car and you go back home, the items, of course, are not assembled for you. And so you would have to assemble it. So there are booklets in the packaging to help you actually figure out how to put it together. And taking it even a step further for people who might not have a screwdriver, for example, they started making these small tools that would help you screw in whatever needs to be screwed in so you can assemble your package. You didn't need any woodworking skills to do any of it. This idea is now adopted by furniture stores globally. The idea of putting your products together, the idea of picking up your own furniture from the store itself. This idea is adopted by furniture stores globally, but in my opinion, none of them are as simple as IKEA furniture. This whole process that Ingvar came up with made everything much cheaper for him because apparently people enjoyed assembling their furniture themselves. It made them happy to put something together. This whole process made everything for Ingvar much cheaper. He didn't have to worry about delivery costs. He didn't have to worry about assembling the furniture beforehand. And surprisingly, people actually enjoyed assembling their furniture themselves. So it was a win-win for Ingvar. With all of these innovations, IKEA began to expand in 1963 beyond just Sweden. They opened their first store overseas in Oslo, Norway, and now, to date, there are 458 IKEA stores globally. I want you to imagine how difficult it must have been to get to this point. This young dyslexic man probably had a lot of haters. He probably had a teacher who told him to think small because of his learning disability. Or when he decided to open a business, he probably had people telling him that he couldn't open that business, that he wouldn't be successful. And there were hiccups every step of the way. He had to figure stuff out. It wasn't as easy as going on the internet and searching for ways to get things done. He did it himself. He didn't listen to those people. He didn't stop just because suppliers boycotted him. He figured out a way to go around it and actually have his dreams come true. There will always be people who stop when they hit a roadblock. There are people who already did and people who still do. But I don't want you to be one of those people. I want to give you back hope for a better future. I want to give you back that power, the power of owning and defining your dreams. I want you to think big and continue to think big. If other people can do it, so can you. Surprise the people that tell you that you can't do something. Be your own biggest cheerleader. Now, think of it this way. The main character of any story always has a challenge. The book wouldn't be as interesting if it was just happy. It starts out with a girl who had everything. She entered a competition and she won without a hitch. There were no roadblocks and she lived happily ever after. Now tell me, is that a book that you would want to read? Honestly, would that be a fun story? Not to me. There has to be bumps on the road to give you a little bounce in your life. Whenever you hit a wall and feel like the problem is unsolvable, know that your life is going to take a turn because you have to back away from that wall and go around it. You are the main character of your story. Take that power back from everybody else in your life, from the bullies in your life, from the people who push you down. The villains don't get as many scenes or as many dialogues as the main character in any movie. Have hope. Have hope for yourself. Have hope for your future. Push beyond your boundaries. Push beyond your limits. Dreams are meant to be unrealistic. If they were realistic, then that would be one boring dream. I want your dreams to stay unrealistic. Push beyond that realistic boundary. The reason people say that your dreams are unrealistic is because they haven't seen a real life example of what it is, or they haven't seen a real life example within their circle of influence, within the people that surrounds them. However, you can be that change. You can turn the dreams into reality. You can make the unrealistic become realistic by actually allowing it to happen. Don't give up on yourself. Have hope, because people's dreams now are the reality that we will live in the future. For this week's mindset challenge, I want you to write down everything you've dreamed of and then choose one thing and take the first step to making it happen. Remember the story of IKEA. Remember Ingvar. Remember how he started. You are amazing. Your future is meant for something bigger than you can even imagine. I want you to block out all the haters. I don't want you to think about them anymore. Allow their hate to fuel your passions, to fuel your dreams. Keep dreaming and turn those dreams into reality. Give other people hope. Push beyond your boundaries. Push beyond your limits. And with that, that is all I have for you for this week's episode. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of Challenge Your Mindset. If you loved this episode, go ahead and share it on your Instagram story and tag me in it at Nuda Unplugged. You could also follow me on Instagram at Nuda Unplugged. That's at Nora Unplugged. If you have not yet done so, hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another podcast episode. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, go ahead and leave us a rating and a review. The more ratings and reviews this podcast gets, the more it will show up organically for people and hopefully help more people than we could have ever imagined. Thanks again for tuning in. I hope you have a fabulous day and an even better week, and I will see you next week.